All right. It says we are live, Bill. It must be true because here we are and we're animated. We're moving. We're talking.
That's right.
Well, welcome everybody here to another one of our collaborations here into Bronze Age characters. And of course, I am joined here by the wonderful, the dynamic, the dreamboat himself, Bill Miller, Comic Mag Musings. How you doing, Bill?
I'm doing well, Roger. Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to talking about Mr. Jonathan Blaze and Ghost Rider.
Wow, Jonathan, that's very
formal.
Very formal of you, yeah. And let me put you as solo layout just so people can see what you got back there before we start.
All right, let me get my big head out of the way.
You have his big triptych of slabs there.
Yes, we've got 5, 6, and 7, and then 1, 2, and 3 of his own title, and then some unrelated to Ghost Rider stuff down on the bottom there.
Well, we appreciate you redecorating for our stream here. I mean, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Absolutely.
So before we before we get into the meat of potatoes, let's wait till some people start coming in. We got some people already coming in the chat. Let me tell you what we are going to do and what this is not going to be, right? If you checked out our Master of Kung Fu stream several months back, it's going to be similar to that. We're going to talk about the origins. We're going to be talking about the creators. We're going to give our input as to what these stories mean and what they were thinking about, or what we think they were thinking about. And how the character really changed and evolved throughout the years here. Now, in this particular stream, we're only going to talk about the Marvel Spotlight 5 through 11. Well, 5 through 12, really, but 5 through 11 and Ghost Rider 1 through 35. And I think next week, Bill, are you going to be doing it? Were you going to be doing it next week or when?
We'll probably wait a couple weeks.
Okay.
And then we'll do part 2 on my channel, and that will be 36 through 81, finishing off the Bronze Age run.
Right. So we essentially divided it in half because we have to, we both have read it, but, we wanted to sort of freshen up again because it's been years since I've read it. Although a lot of it came back to me. Some of it I was like, man, I did not remember that at all.
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And we'll be starting with Marvel Spotlight 5 momentarily. First of all, let's get into this great chat. See who's joining us here. I think I see a lot of our old friends here, Bill, from years and years now.
Yes, emphasis on the old part.
Yeah, emphasis on the old. Well, I bet you I'm the oldest in this crowd. But anyway, we have, of course, your antithesis, Jackson Roykirk, here in the chat. One of the best, and if not the best, chat superstar out there.
Yes.
Yeah, boy, I tell you, any stream you're on, he's there. That's why I call him the antithesis, right? We got Magic Lasso, Ryan, great YouTubers, great, putting out some great vids. If you have any questions about Wonder Woman whatsoever, this is the man to go to.
Absolutely.
And we have I Love Disney and Comics. Steve is, again, a great supporter of both of us, and Night Tiger. And I was on the game show with him. He is just a spectacular collector. He's getting great stuff on Instagram lately, by the way, too.
Very cool.
Speaking of great stuff, we got Tim, the comic collector, over from St. Louis, who just showed us all the appearances, I think, or at least not the appearances, but all the different series of Batman Beyond. Great video. If you haven't seen it, you got to check that out because he has it all. Even like the promo one, the giveaway,
He's been getting some nice big boy books too. I think he just got a Swamp Thing 37?
Yeah.
Is that 37 first appearance of Constantine?
Yeah, you're right.
Very nice.
Speaking of, guys who have big aspects to them, Ranger Sly. This guy, I mean, he knows the minutia like nobody's business.
He does.
I mean, I tell you, and he's in those chat superstar conversation. He does do videos, but really I think bread and butter is just keeping us honest on these streams, which I appreciate, by the way.
Especially with you. You have a tendency to skid into dishonesty every now and then.
You know me. I really, I skimmed that line. We got Mike Knights of Old, one of the golden guys. Talk about great collections, man. I mean, another guy who's very understated, and then he has a FF1, Avengers 1. He has it on the background there somewhere.
Smooth as butter right here.
Huh?
Smooth as butter.
Oh, you know it. Smooth as butter. He's on the No Faces chat. We love him when he comes up because we got the butter melting on the pan. Another chat superstar, our buddy from New Mexico, James Gallegos, not Gallegos, by the way.
Oh, I've been saying it wrong.
James Gallegos. Gallego is a part of some people in Spain. They were Gallegos. But anyway, I'm not going to get into the part of what that is.
You can't be a native of Arizona and mispronounce
no, you shouldn't, but
Spanish surnames.
You're near Mexico, not Spain. If you were near Spain, and you didn't know what Basque or Gallegos were, then forget it. All right.
Well, they speak it a little bit differently too in Spain, I think.
They do.
Yeah.
Here's another gentleman. Okay, he may be a little older than I am. I'm not sure, but this is another great collector with a vast array of knowledge of all kinds of comics. Damien. Who doesn't like characters with flaming skulls? I agree, right? I agree. What's not to like? And our buddy Super Russ 9000 Russ over there from North Carolina, one of the sweetest men on this planet, and I love him to death. And he's always supporting our channels. And speaking of sweet guy, here he is, Mr. Garrel. He always does this when I come into a chat or something. Oh my God, it's Metarog. He has his own show with Barbarian Kung Fu. I think they're called the Bounty Hunters now, which will come up.
That's apropos.
Yeah. And I think that's it for now. So let's see who else will join us. All right. So let's get into this stream, right?
All right.
All right. As I say, what this is and what this isn't, right? We are talking about Johnny Blaze Ghost Rider here, right? Now, there was a previous Ghost Rider. Actually, there were others, even Magazine Enterprises had one. But
correct.
There was a previous one who was a Western hero. Well, non-superpowered, really. Carter Slade. And he was in a title called Ghost Rider, but when they went to the Bronze Age, they renamed him Knight Rider, I think.
Yeah, so let's take it back a little bit further, right? It was because Dick Ayers is really a player throughout this, throughout the history of the Ghost Riders. Hey, William Smallwood, how you doing? Thanks for stopping in. And he was doing the Calico Kid, a backup story in Tim Holt comic book. Right. And the publisher, I think it was the publisher, might have been the editor, I think it was the publisher, heard a song called, I think it's Riders in the Sky. And in the song, they mentioned the term Ghost Rider. And he coupled that with the Disney cartoon that came out in the late 40s, I think, of the, was it the Ichabod Crane? And the one that threw the pumpkin, the Headless Horseman.
Headless Horseman.
Yeah. And so he said, hey, let's redo this Calico Kid kind of in this supernatural direction. And so he ended up falling in a whirlpool and swirling down and turning into the Ghost Rider, which he rode a horse and he was in a white suit and had goggles that would reflect the evil in the people that he fought. Well, the Comics Code Authority came into being in '55, and that kind of put a kibosh on anything supernatural. And so quickly he had his own title, but then he was relegated to being a backup story in other titles and just faded away. Well, in '67, Ayers was with Marvel, and he said, hey, I think the copyright's coming up on Ghost Rider. And it did. So then they put him in his own magazine. as Ghost Rider, very similar to how he had been previously, but only ran for a couple issues. Then in, I think, 70 or 71, Ayers was working for Skywall, and they created a character called Hell Rider.
Hell Rider, yep.
Who was only around for 2 issues, but he was a motorcycle kind of almost like a bandit. And then that kind of led into them with Friedrich and Klug coming up with Ghost Rider in 73 for Marvel. And then they reintroduced the original Ghost Rider as Knight Rider in his own title, but then someone clued them in that Knight Rider was a term used for Klansmen. And so they changed his name to Phantom Rider after that.
Excellent job, Bill. Excellent. I'm impressed. That was excellent, excellent, excellent. Right on the nose everywhere. And that's right. This is like the pre-origin even of, I mean,
right.
Frederick. Yeah, when he was in Skywall, I guess you can say that he was sort of like a prototype. I mean, he wasn't demonic in any form, but he had a motorcycle, and
that was the main part of the prototype. Yeah,
and he fired this stuff from the So, and then, but again, Skywall magazines didn't really, the hero aspect didn't really go anywhere.
Right.
So he took the idea with Ayers over to Marvel, and the rest is history. Good job. Good job. I did want to show everybody a little bit of art here. I'm going to make myself big for a second here, Bill.
All right.
This was done for me by Century Stir Fry when I won one of his contests, and he thought he took too long to get me the prize, so he drew this for me, and I love it. So I framed it. If you look at it there, you can see Stir Fry must do penance for the delay.
Aren't you glad he delayed?
Oh, am I glad? I told him, hey, no big deal, And I miss that guy. I haven't seen a video of him for a while. I hope he's okay, and he does take time off here and there. So I hope he did just have a baby just a year back. So hopefully he's gotten some sleep now,
right.
And can come back, because I miss him. He's one of the funniest guys on here that I've ever heard of. Really, he's just a riot. A couple more guys have popped in here. Let's just give them a little shout out here. We've got William Smallwood, and one of our longtime loyal supporters. Thank you for being here, William.
Another Bill.
Imperious Flex, great name, by the way. Thank you for being here. Paulo Costa, another one of those guys who's incredible oracle of knowledge. Yep. Even though he's foreign, to the United States, he has an amazing knowledge base. I love to hear his comments.
Paulo's outstanding.
Yeah, agreed. Gary B, the casual comic guy. I just saw one of his videos. One of the friendliest, nicest guys around. Great to have you here.
Big Conan fella.
I was gonna say you know him from the big Conan, and yeah. Red Sonja's got that Conan. Was it 23, 24 right up there?
Yeah, I don't blame him.
Warlord, another longtime supporter. How you doing, buddy? Good to see you.
Warlord.
And I think that's it. Oh boy, guess who just popped in? Bub himself.
Oh no. Oh, there goes the chat. Hopefully he doesn't have a blue wrench. Oh no, he does.
And notice what he's. It hasn't come up. Here we go. Notice what he says here. Sorry, I couldn't join you tonight. Glad Bill was late for me. And that he was happening. Yeah.
Well, Bub's kind of proud of himself. His fees are getting a little out of hand.
Yeah. He's we didn't have a No Faces chat last Monday, and he's chopping at the bit. So
we got Angel from Pages Films and Plastic.
He hasn't come up on my screen here yet, but yeah, how you doing, Angel? I think he now is in the United States. He was in Puerto Rico, but I think he moved. Here he is. How you doing, buddy? Great to see you here. All right, let's get going, Bill, because we already been partly moving here for 15 minutes, and we haven't gotten to the meat here. All right, let's talk about Let's talk about Marvel Spotlight 5, first of all.
Okay.
Right? Yeah, this is a copy that Bub did find for me, so he's probably going to take credit for it, and it's true. It's true. He found it for me, and he actually brokered it and the whole bit. So thank you, Bub, or else I would not have this. Hey, Mark Spector, how you doing?
What's up, Dave?
All right, so I'm going to start here, Bill, and you can take over when my throat gets dry.
Fair enough.
Johnny Blaze was the son of Barton Blaze, who was a stunt motorcyclist. He was a showman and all that. And this is shown in a little bitty area here in the comic, right?
Right.
And he died in an accident during a show. And he was adopted by Crash Simpson,
Right.
who had a show with his daughter and his wife.
Craig and Mona. Right.
Right. And, Johnny, just kept, obviously he had it in his genes, right? So he just kept looking at them in the shows and everything. And he was secretly practicing his own stunt riding. And he became an incredibly acrobatic motorcyclist, but he didn't, he was at this point wasn't at the show. And then there was an accident. And Johnny, it wasn't, I guess it was his fault, but he wasn't really the cause of it. And then Crash Simpson's wife died. And she, on her deathbed, before she died, said, please do not ride in the show. Please don't do it. So the whole issue, situations come up where, they keep trying to egg him. Hey, you're great. You can be in the show. And he's like, no. They call him a coward. They call him a fool. They call him all this stuff. And of course, he has a crush on Roxanne Simpson, which he calls Rocky.
Mm-hmm.
And then they hear one day that Crash Simpson has, I think, cancer or some terminal disease.
Yeah.
And he only has about a month to live, right? So, Johnny says, he can't take losing another father. At this point, they've been together a decade or something.
Yep.
And so what does he do? He takes it upon himself to call out the devil and strike a bargain so that Crash Simpson can be cured of this disease. And of course, the devil says, sure, no problem, but you're mine when you die, Okay, so what happens is, Crash Simpson goes to, does a show, and he does this really just impossible stunt because he figures
Madison Square Garden. Yeah.
Right, in Madison Square Garden. What does he have to lose? He's jumping 22, 32 cars. I forgot how many.
Well, and that's what Johnny was thinking. What does he have to lose? I already struck a deal, so he can't die.
Yeah, exactly. That's what he's thinking, right? Yeah. I struck a, but you see, that's the thing with the devil, that the deals that you make with him have to be very specifically and explicitly put, because he doesn't die of the disease, but he does die crashing during that stunt.
Right. And that's the key. The devil said, I told you that I would cure him from the illness. I didn't say that I would prevent all manner of death.
That's right.
So, Bub confirms that. I think in all the deals that he struck with the devil, he has a lawyer go over each contract just to make sure that he doesn't have any loopholes.
Oh yeah, he's got the Daniel and Devil, the Devil and Daniel Webster book, forwards, So again, so Johnny Blaze, after that happens, he's like, no, this can't happen. You went back on our deal, and then, like you said, the devil said that again. When we see the devil, we'll talk about that later. And he was like,
yes, he was retconned later.
He was retconned later.
Yeah.
And then the Satan, the devil, he says, well, you know what? You're mine, okay? And I want to make you an emissary of mine, so that during that night you do my bidding. During the day you can hang out with these people. But I'm going to take your soul. And then he tries to do that, but Roxanne Simpson walks in, and apparently, because she is so pure and her love for Johnny is so pure, it repels the devil, and he can't control Johnny. He can't take his soul because she is like kryptonite to his evil.
And also, she studied these books of the occult, unbeknownst to Johnny, the ones that Johnny had, and so she set a spell that prevented him from taking his soul as well.
Okay.
And I'll go back to that. I don't like the way they kind of worked all that in. There needed to be more explanation, and I get that they're trying to get the origin out as quickly as possible so they can move on with the story. But I really think that they didn't do justice in that particular area.
Yeah, it was very rushed and very compressed.
Right. It just, I mean, where's your lead up, right? He just happens to have these books of the occult around and say, I'm going to go, you would think they would say, well, some friend interested in these ancient tomes or something would have led up to that.
Right. No, he just gets them. He just has them, right?
Yeah.
So that's essentially what happens in this origin. Very tragic, but there's a ray of hope in Roxanne Simpson, and it's continued. We the story is essentially continued in number 6 here,
right.
Where again, very confusing. Either Crash Simpson really didn't die, or he was resurrected as somebody else by Satan. But there's this guy here called Curly, I believe his name was.
Leader of the Satan's Saints.
Satan's servants, I think they were, right?
Well, I thought it was Satan's Saints.
Well, maybe it was. Maybe
a biker gang, essentially, yeah.
So, they hassle Johnny, and for some reason he finds he joins them. Now he has
he needed a place to crash.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, at this point, Ghost Rider turns into the demonic Ghost Rider at night and Johnny back during the day. All right. And he does have flame powers, but he does not have he doesn't have the hell cycle yet. He uses the regular cycle.
All right, he gets that in issue 3.
Right.
Of his own title.
We'll talk about that in a while. Gary Frederick still reading the story. And again, later on in 7 here, now they tried to sacrifice the cult or whatever that he's part of, the satanic. That's one thing, Bill, I wanted to mention, right? In these first couple years, everything is very supernatural, very witchcraft and suggestions and devil worshiping. Really stuff that if you're queasy about that, this is probably something you may want to be careful about, but it's not really, it's always, to me, poignant that the devil is always exposed as a liar, as essentially somebody that's totally untrustworthy and that will do things purely for his benefit, not for yours. Okay. So there's
I think they were making a concerted effort at this time to revitalize their horror genre, right? With Tomb of Dracula, Werewolf, and so they definitely wanted this to be part of that classification, but it eventually kind of moved away from that.
Yeah, and that's a good point I was about to make as well, is that this was much more in the horror genre, and in fact, he goes out of his way saying, "I am no hero,"
Yep.
And the first couple of years, he's just trying to manage what he's become.
And I like the way they did that too, because he had powers that he just wasn't aware of at particular points in time. And it's not until later on that through happenstance or somebody points something out or out of necessity, he finds out that he has these different abilities.
Correct. And we're going to get to that because every writer sort of changes a little bit what he is. And then here, I think this is the last issue where Frederick, or is it 9? It's either this one or 9, where Frederick finishes off the sword of the story arc, and essentially Crash Simpson, whether it's resurrected or he was never died or whatever, fights Johnny Storm, and he was about to kill Roxanne, but he couldn't. He couldn't bring himself to do it, and he actually fights back Satan and allows Johnny and Roxanne to escape. That's the way I remember it, at least.
Well, no, so what happened was Satan said, in order to have to give you another life, another chance at life, you have to secure Johnny's soul from me. And he couldn't do that. But in the interim, he did take his daughter as Curly, as a reanimated person the devil made him, as Curly, to have her sacrificed, which is kind of weird, right? You would think that he would care about that more than his own soul. That didn't work, but both he and Ghost Rider were sent to hell, and Ghost Rider said, "You're going to battle it out." Ghost Rider sent some minions to help him out, and they were battling it. And then he had the opportunity, had the upper hand to defeat to defeat Ghost Rider, and that's where he couldn't do it. And he helped him fight back, and then he sacrificed his own soul to save Johnny, or to save Ghost Rider in that instance.
At least at this point, that's what we were led to understand. But later on, he does say he tricks Roxanne and says,
but he tricked her. He tricked her in that instance, though. Yeah. So this was later on when the devil said that because at the end of this, when this happened, right, there was this messenger that said, "I will take care of his soul and make sure he has everlasting peace." Right. And so later on, and I don't want to get too far ahead, but Satan is tricking Roxanne, saying, "Hey, if you give up your defense of Johnny Blaze, I will let your father rest." And he played all these hallucinations of her father being in torment, a tormented soul in hell. And then when she finally did, he said, "Ha ha, I never had a soul to begin with."
Yep.
So that part was a trick. Yes.
Right. Yeah. And you just, that's one thing about this series that, I mean, I'll just mention it quickly. You never knew what was happening. I mean, there was so much misdirection and so many facades that it was very hard to sort of keep track later on, especially when other writers took over. Because this one here, I think the issue was cut in half. That first half was what you said, when they got together in hell and he sacrificed himself and the messenger took him off. And then he rides into your neck of the woods over in Arizona.
I loved that part of it. There were so few.
I'm sure you do.
Yeah, right? There were so few comic books that took place in the southwestern United States that was fantastic.
True. West Coast Avengers had a few, but you're right.
Right.
And I think he was there as part of the show. I mean, while this is going on, he's still, doing the show,
Right.
And I think he was this the Copperhead Canyon jump?
Yeah. So Copperhead Canyon, that was an area in a fictional area where he was going to jump the canyon, a la Evel Knievel, right? With Snake Canyon, I think it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was the introduction of Snake Dance.
Yeah, that's here.
Yeah, he was an Apache religious figure who had a snake cult, and he and his main charge, who was Sam Silvercloud, they were opposed to this jump because they were negotiating with the government to get Snake Canyon back for the Apache tribe, and they felt that if he succeeded in his jump, it would become a tourist trap, and the government wouldn't relinquish it.
That's right. You got it. 100%. Let me see if was Plug still on at this point, because I remember he left soon after.
Not sure.
No, yeah, Tom Sutton. Tom Sutton took over.
Okay.
Tom Sutton took over, and Frederick is still writing it. Now Plug, to me, had such a beautiful Ghost Rider. He had that kind of aura in the flame. He had that really nice blue, like almost like glistened. His leather blue suit. And Sutton was not bad, but not Plug.
Right. Yeah, I think most of the artists they had on were good, decent to good. But yeah, I think it's tough to hold a candle to Plug, right? Especially when you get into the horror / supernatural type stuff.
Right. And that's really more evidence that this is really more in the supernatural vein, because Plug, he did He did Werewolf by Night,
Frankenstein,
etc. So you can sort of see that this was sort of in that same vein.
right?
And then the story continues, and Roxanne Simpson is again in here, and she is like sacrificed. She's bitten.
Yeah. Well, she was supposed to be married to the snake god, a bride of the snake god, and that could happen if she survived the bite of the copperhead. Yes.
Yeah. But she starts like convulsing and stuff, and they're like, "Oh well, you better pray because she's not gonna survive."
Right.
So then I forget if it was this issue or the next issue we introduce Snake Dance's daughter.
Yeah, Linda Little Trees, I think, who
Linda
was
Little Trees, right?
Witch Woman.
He was who was we didn't know at the time, but he's Witch Woman, and her origin, I think, is either here or here. And she actually was kind of cajoled by her roommate and converted to a Satanist back in college.
Right.
And explicitly, and maybe you can explain this to me, Bill, but she sees Roxanne Simpson, what she's going through, and she goes and gets the anti-venom from her father, and she's a motorcyclist too, and rides down to the hospital to save her life. The only reason I can think of is there's a little flashback where she was saved by Crash Simpson, but how does she know all that?
Right. So yeah, Ghost Rider took Roxanne to the hospital, and they're like, we don't have any anti-venom for this.
Right.
Snake Dance does. And so when Linda finds out about it, she gets the venom and takes it back. And yes, they flash back to when Crash Simpson was a police officer, actually. He was a motorcycle officer for a time, and that's when she was saved by him. And so I think she knew it was for Roxanne Simpson, and she made the connection, and that's what compelled her to try to save her life, which she ultimately did end up doing.
Okay, I thought that was really late, razor thin logic at the time. But I guess it was a plot device that had to happen, right?
Well, yeah, and speaking of plot devices, we will see over and over and over again love interests of Johnny Blaze, particularly Roxanne, be put in peril time and time again, similarly with some supernatural type cult.
Over and over again. You're right. That happened, and there was always some relationship dynamic going on, and tension amongst Johnny and other women. That was constant. It was soap opera.
Right. And I'll talk about that because I think for the most part that worked really well. But there are a couple areas where I felt it was really forced, and I think it's kind of when Jim Shooter jumped on to write some issues, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah. So Witch Woman at the end there, she was supposedly he wasn't sure, but she thought he was destroyed because she didn't do what Satan wanted her to do fast enough or whatever. She failed.
Right. She definitely overpowered him. She had demonic powers from Satan as well. And she's the one that showed Johnny initially that he could do things that he didn't even know he could do. But she easily defeated him, but not to the liking of Satan. And so he forced her to essentially use her powers to what you think is perish herself.
Yeah. But she does say, "Oh, I trust you. I believe in you that you'll take care of me," and the whole bit. So, well, she does come back, but
she does.
Then here's the first. Now, in issue 11, it says, apparently it was successful because it says, starring in his new solo series, and then we get issue number 1. Nice cover here, by the way. I really do like this cover. Breaking through the barricades. The police are after him a lot in this series. Not only does he have these powers, right, but he uses, and I like this, Bill. He uses a lot of his stunt writing ability in his adventures. He doesn't just rely on that. Even if he was just a stunt writer, he'd be a pretty, capable kind of guy,
Right.
But the police are after him all the time, shooting at him, when he's just speeding, all kinds of, things that today we're like, oh, police brutality. Back then, forget it,
Yep.
But
I just love some of the terms they use too, because this is so steeped in the 70s.
Yeah,
they call him cycle jockey, and
it's another thing. You got to remember that there's a lot of things that today would be totally inappropriate. They call women fillies and things like that. So
yeah,
so you got to sort of.
I love it. This is in my wheelhouse. Marvel Bronze Age. Some of the writing is just outstanding. I do think that there was a noticeable leap in quality from Silver Age to Bronze Age when it came to Marvel writing, where they were clearly targeting the high school / college reader. True. With a lot of these things, and it has the same kind of feel where the protagonist is always kind of searching, pulling rabbit ears out of his pockets, searching for a way to get his next meal, and just kind of being introspective on life and trying to figure out what direction he's going to take.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. Agreed. Let's see if there's any comments here. If you guys have any questions while we're going along, go ahead and shoot them out.
You got Jason. What's up, Southern Comic Geek? Good to see you.
Hey, how you doing, buddy? My buddy from Mississippi. We got the immortal Biggie Shack. Yo, Metarog. Yo, Biggie.
Keep it comics, Biggie.
Yeah. All right. Another thing that happens here is that you see the change here is that the snake dance sees his daughter kind of like possessed, or he thinks he's possessed.
Yes.
And so he calls in an exorcist.
Sam Silvercloud does.
I'm sorry, Sam Silvercloud.
Yeah, who is the fiance of
that's
Snake
right.
Dance's daughter. Yes.
That's right. That's right. He tries to he's the you're right. You're absolutely right. And then right at the end, we don't see clearly, but he shows up, and we don't know who he is yet, but we'll find out soon.
That's right.
And then she actually
I think it goes from 1 to number 12, doesn't it?
Actually, it goes from
Does it 1 to 12? Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
2 to 12. I got it here.
Okay.
I looked it up, Bill.
All right.
So here, she takes off. She like breaks out of the house she was in with her father and her fiance, and when Damien shows up, she ain't there.
Right.
And so but it's getting late. So Damien now that exorcist is Damien Hellstorm, okay, son of Satan. So he says, if you ever saw that Twilight Zone, the Howling Man, that's the exact same thing that happens here. He says to these guys, listen, put these anks across on my wrists, throw me in a room, lock me in there. No matter what I say, don't let me out until the sun comes up the next day. And of course, they let him out.
Right?
And there's a story here between, again, the resurrected witch woman who again goes after Johnny Blaze with the Satan wanting his soul, and then and Roxanne Simpson is also involved here.
Yeah, I think. I think she is. Gosh, I don't remember. I think she's attacked by a biker gang.
Right.
Yeah.
She's like. So, well, this is what happens. She's out there, right? And she's attacked by this guy, and she's kidnapped by this biker gang, right? And Son of Satan is looking for the Linda Littletrees and Ghost Rider. Yeah. And I didn't know this, Bill, but apparently if you ride out in the desert, there's an entrance to hell out there. But before that, he encounters those bikers and just disposes of them like nothing,
Well, yeah, for the time being, he does.
Right. He just, he's like, you guys are just bothering me here.
Right. But the problem is then he leaves her high and dry, and they're revived, and they go back after her.
Exactly. So she's down the road. They go pick her up, and now they take her to his lair. That's another plot going on there. But then he goes down. Now remember, the werewoman, the witch woman, and Johnny Blaze were taken down to hell by Satan, and they're down there.
Yep.
And Damon Hellstorm says, "Okay, I know where they're at." So he goes down there and fights his father. Mano a mano.
Right.
All right. And
not as Damon, because he changes into Son of Satan.
Yeah, he changes into Son of Satan. Yeah.
Yeah. And so they collaborate, at least he and Ghost Rider do, and help defeat his father.
Yeah, and in this part, he doesn't even become Ghost Rider. He's Johnny Blaze because Satan has suppressed his ability.
That's right, his ability to change.
Yeah. But he does rescue them, and Son of Satan is like, he's like, I want to take over hell. Why should you take over hell? All that stuff. It's like a civil war there. And he just leaves them in the desert. Also, if you know anything about the Arizona desert, I know Bill does, in the middle of nowhere, no water, no transportation. It's like a death sentence, essentially.
Yeah, you better be looking for some cacti.
Yeah.
So he's definitely not altruistic, even though he does help out Ghost Rider. It's not for altruistic reasons.
Hey, Jaguar, how you doing? Great to see you here, buddy. Great Aquaman fan right there. Okay, so this is when Linda Littletrees shows Ghost Rider that he can manipulate flame and create what his hell cycle, which is it's totally made out of hellfire. Okay,
right.
And he does it. He becomes Ghost Rider at night, and then he creates the hell cycle, and they ride into town, Phoenix or somewhere. I'm not sure exactly where. And then he has to now find out where Roxanne Simpson is. So he goes and finds out where they are. And this guy is like a white supremacist dude here with Nazi symbols and all this stuff. Not a nice guy at all, And he's actually holding her for ransom, I think.
Yeah.
Because he thinks that Johnny Blaze has money,
Right. They do that a couple times.
Yeah. It doesn't work out well for him at all, and she is recovered. Okay.
Yeah.
This is where it starts getting a little hairy to me. Now he's again trying to go back to normal life in a sense, and he finds this guy who wants him to be in this demolition derby. I think it is.
Yeah. I enjoyed that issue mainly because that's such a 70s thing. I can remember, I'm of an age where I remember demolition derbies on television. It's kind of like roller derby. That was big back then too. It just smacks of the 1970s.
It does. It does.
Yeah, I love that. But yeah, so some guy once says, hey, you should be in this demolition derby. But then I can't remember how many issues that runs into, but ultimately, the owner of the demolition derby has put out a hit on one of the contract drivers because he's costing him money.
Right.
And so Ghost Rider gets mixed up.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And right here, I think this is the last issue by Fred. I think this is the last issue. And let me see if you think of the same opinion. Yeah, this is the last issue by Frederick, right? And then we get number 5, and all of a sudden the owner of that the promoter guy turns into this demon or Satan spawned human something.
Right.
It seemed to me rather abrupt. Like I don't think that's what Frederick had in mind.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think there was probably editorial pressure or something to either wrap this thing up quickly or to push it a little bit more into the supernatural direction.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah. I totally agree, and because it seemed rather abrupt. But again, Satan again had another agent. Now he's holding like Las Vegas ransom.
Right.
And he has to. I think he gives him a choice: either save Vegas or save Roxanne. And of course, he chooses Roxanne.
Right. Yeah, that was a ploy that was used early and often, where different demons would take the guise of human form or work on behalf of Satan to try to get Johnny Blaze in his soul.
Yeah, you're right about that. You're right about that. And of course, it always puts him in a very, very compromising position. But he, again, he figures it out, and he now at this point though. Okay, at this point we start going a little bit more into the heroic aspects of Johnny Blaze, just a little bit more, and starts. I think this is Tony Isabella starts over here. Maybe these are fill-in writers, but eventually Tony Isabella starts. And on this one, he starts with the Zodiac, which is really just one guy with all the different Zodiac powers. And he also starts to collaborate with a demon.
Yeah. So that's the guy that I think he was like a mob boss or something like that, or he was killed by the mob and double crossed by them, and he made a deal with the devil to get his powers back for 1 full year. He could be reanimated or alive again for 1 full year, and that's the key to how he gets tricked.
That's the key,
by the devil or by a demon. Yes, that's
the key, exactly. Because remember that the devil, it's never the way that it seems, right?
Right.
And in fact, there's also I like this story a bit because you had that the son, which was he was traumatized by Zodiac, and he's like, you gotta get him, and he actually like threatens Roxanne Simpson and
he's an ex-FBI agent, I think. Yeah,
exactly. So it sort of shows you that their PTSD kind of thing, which way back here in the 70s.
Oh yeah, he was obsessed with his capture.
Yeah, because he was just totally he was messed up. Let's put it that way. He was messed up. And here we also get the introduction of not introduction. That was in, I think, Daredevil, but in the Johnny Blaze universe of
Stunt Rider. Stunt Master. I'm sorry. Yeah,
Stunt Master. And he doesn't have superpowers, but he helped him out. He helped him out here.
Such a great cover too, and going back to what Gary had said. Ghost Rider had just some of the greatest covers, just some incredible ones.
Absolutely, and it keeps going even. Hey Slim, how you doing, buddy? Great to see you here.
What's up, Sean?
I'm taking little looks at the.
That's true.
Good one, Paolo. Good one. Absolutely good one. I really enjoyed Cosmic Ghost Rider. That's a whole other
Cosmic
thing.
Ghost Rider. That's Punisher, right? Yeah.
So again, what Bill was stating that he had a year, so he thought that was a calendar year, right? But what happens is that he turned into every one of the zodiac signs, and thus completed a zodiac year. And he came, and the devil once again, sneaky bugger that he is,
took him back.
Took him back, and it was Aquarius, but he turned into all different ones, and that's it. He's out of there. He's now a denizen in hell.
Yeah.
But what happens here is that he starts this relationship with Stuntmaster, and Stuntmaster says, "Hey, you're pretty good, stunt rider and all that. Look me up. I'm in Hollywood,
Yeah. So Stuntmaster was doing like a signing at a local place when he saw the Ghost Rider getting into action, and Stuntmaster is a good cyclist himself. He said, "Hey, let me go help him out." So Stuntmaster is actually on a TV show, and they're looking for a stunt double for him, and that's where he offered Johnny the job if he's ever interested.
Right, and that plays into a few issues later, but here, this is where the Ghost Rider is going to change here in a few issues, right? And there's a really cool part in number 9, but Satan overpowers this demon here because he just kept failing, and he was like, well, I'm going to make you just super powerful so you can crush this guy, because he can't take his soul because Roxanne Simpson is protecting him with his love,
right.
with her love, right?
Correct.
So he has to find other methods, to get him to give up, and to frustrate him and threaten him and the people around him and all this stuff, right? So what happens here in 9 is that the Satan takes Roxanne Simpson down to hell, right? And she's like, hey, you can't tell. Oh, take it easy. Take it easy. Take it easy. And he says, well, listen, again, right? I'll release Crash Simpson, okay, from hell, but you have to renounce your protection of Ghost Rider. And she's like, oh, I'm going to damn one or the other. He goes, listen, Crash Simpson is already damned. So if you release him, at least Johnny Blaze has a chance, a slim one. He has a chance. So she renounces his protection of Ghost Rider, and now Satan can do anything he wants. Takes away his ghostly powers. He's in pain. He's like, takes him to hell, whatever, right? And he's about to lay the kibosh on him. And then this one guy comes out of the crowd.
Yeah.
And he looks familiar to me. Does he look familiar to you?
He does indeed. And they do everything but tell you, right, in ensuing issues, that it's if not Jesus, a Jesus-like figure who saves essentially Johnny, and you'll see him in subsequent issues every now and then.
Yep.
But
him,
Johnny suspects who it is, but they never kind of pinpoint it.
Yeah, they call him a friend.
Yep.
The friend. And all he does is saying, listen, Satan, you can't do that. He's earned the right to be free.
Right.
And Satan is like, you can't stand, this guy.
Yep.
Yeah. And by the way, all kind of biblical references here. Satan references Job and how he tortured him, et cetera, et cetera. So it's in the penumbra of that, right?
Right.
But it's never explicitly said. That's true. They sort of leave it up to your imagination. But boy,
right.
He looks just like the biblical Jesus.
Absolutely.
So good news, right? He's free, but guess what? He is now his powers have been weakened because now he's no longer, because before he couldn't die, because if he did, then Satan wouldn't take his soul. So
correct.
So Satan protected him or gave him the ability to not die and all that. Now he can be hurt as Ghost Rider, right. And his flame powers, he can't produce his flame cycle, or he thinks he can't. And he's not as strong, and doesn't have as much endurance, et cetera, et cetera. So he has to come up with his own cycle, and he comes up and he buys a skull cycle, I guess.
Right.
And Roxanne Simpson takes off. She's like, listen, I have to see what, I have to get my head clear. I did something I never thought I would. I renounced my protection of
She
you.
sold him out, right?
She sold him out, yeah.
And so she's questioning their relationship and whether her love is truly strong enough to maintain that relationship. She kind of needs to, in classic 70s style, late 60s, 70s, figure things out for herself, take a mental break and a physical break from Johnny.
Maybe he was just a hippie.
He could have been.
Maybe.
He could have been.
A hippie pulled one over on Satan?
Yeah. But yeah, you're right. Just to go back to that real quickly, it's like the person who was after his soul was the one who protected him as Ghost Rider.
Yep.
Because he couldn't let him die because he needed his soul.
Yeah, and he's obsessed with his soul. He's totally,
absolutely.
totally obsessed, you know.
Yeah, you would think he had some others to pick from.
Yeah, I mean,
but it's like that was his sole concentration was on Johnny.
It's like, you know, he has this you know, who knew Satan was so, you know, obsessive compulsive. All right, well, let's get going a little quicker here, Bill, because we're almost an hour in.
All right, let's do it.
Here, you think, wow, okay, the Hulk is going to fight Ghost Rider. No, it's a reprint. I did a video on
Spotlight 5.
Yeah, it's a exact reprint of Marvel Spotlight 5. I did a video on these unannounced reprints some years back, and they frustrated the heck out of me. You know, because you know I didn't look inside. I was like, oh, the Hulk. Here's my quarter. I get home, I'm like, what?
Yeah.
But he does come out in a lot.
Right. That's the story that cover was supposed to go with originally, but at the last minute they figured out they weren't going to get the story done, and so they ran with the reprint, but the cover they had already created for it.
Right. Exactly. Yep. And this, I think, is a Gil Kane cover. It looks like Gil Kane to me. So, and here it's again, you know, this happened a lot back then. They would put like bigger stars in books that had newer or fledgling characters.
Right.
And here, essentially, the Hulk is tricked. Again, this is still in the supernatural realm here. Tricked. They create an apparition, I think, that looks like the Ghost Rider, and then attacks Hulk, and then he comes across the real Ghost Rider. And
right. This is during like an endurance race, I believe.
Correct.
Yeah, correct. And then it was a pretty good issue because they had some other racers that had their own motives and their own quirks, and then ultimately they all helped Johnny Blaze at the end win out.
Yeah, I agree. I thought it was pretty cool because they fleshed out some other characters, you know, and gave them their little spotlight. Again, now we're starting to get more into the super heroic. I think Isabella still is writing, but I think this is where the artists really went downhill. Yeah, this is where Frank Robbins did a few issues. And man, Bill, I did not like his Ghost Rider at all, man. I mean, he was always like sweating. He looked like Gumby. You know? I mean, it was just, I did not like it. But the story is pretty good.
The writing was good in that one, though. Yeah.
Story's good. Essentially,
That's the Phantom Eagle, right?
Yeah, Phantom Eagle, World War One. This German guy, he's after this German guy, and Ghost Rider gets told a story which we find out is not true.
Yep.
And actually, the German guy murdered this guy's parents, and now he is like a spirit of vengeance, which is kind of a foreshadowing here.
Right.
And at the end, you know, he gets his comeuppance.
Yeah, it was an old guy walking along that Johnny rode by and noticed that this World War I biplane apparition was shooting after him. The guy's like, he's been after me for my whole life.
Years, yeah. Like
decades. Exactly. And it turns out that that's because the old man shot this guy down in World War I when this guy was just trying to save his parents.
Yeah, he was actually on the ground when he shot him.
Correct. Yep. Yeah. And so that's why he's been trying to get back after him all this time. And then they go to visit this old guy's son, who's writing a book about who collects World War I planes and stuff. He has a big hangar, and he's writing a book about some of the different pilots and planes that they had. And ultimately, what happens is Ghost Rider doesn't want Phantom Eagle to hurt him, even though he has perhaps the right to, and Phantom Eagle isn't going to. But this guy gets in a plane to fight him and confront him anyways, and ends up losing, and Phantom Eagle does get his vengeance in the end.
Yeah, it's a very good story, actually. Yep. A very good story, this one is. I really enjoyed it. Again, it's not your usual kind of story. It's one of those really, you know, conundrum kind of stories, you know what I mean?
Right.
So I just want to say hi to Mike, our buddy from Canada.
What's up, Mike? Who's
done some great, fantastic figure videos lately.
He's doing well. He's retired. He does well every day.
He's retired. I mean, he's living the dream.
That's
all right.
It.
Now here, Ghost Rider took up the offer of the stuntmaster. he goes down to LA and
Delasny Studios.
Delasny Studios. Yeah. I think there's some other studios that sound like that in real life, and they're like Delaney or something.
Yeah.
And so now he meets, as we said, there's always a girl involved. Roxanne Simpson had just left. Now Karen Page, Matt Murdock's old flame, is in the picture.
And Katie, her stunt double.
And Katie is her.
She's also briefly in the picture romantically.
Yeah, she is, and Katie is very important because of what's coming later. Okay.
Yep.
And then you got this trapster who's Paste Pot Pete, and tries to kidnap her because there's a bounty on her, like a kidnapping $1 million thing.
Yep.
Which is another convoluted plot, but Ghost Rider again, doesn't have the peak powers, but come on, it's Trapster. He takes care of him. Post haste, no problem. Then we start getting the orb. Now, we are not going to be covering every single appearance of Johnny Blaze because we would be here forever.
Yeah, he was with Spider-Man in either Marvel Team Up or was it 2-in-1? It was something like that when they first met the orb.
Marvel Team Up 15 is when he first met the orb, right? And it was some years before, or sometime before this.
Right.
But we are going to cover the crossovers that pertain to this title, but not outside. Okay. He also met with the Thing in Marvel 2-in-1 8 or something. Miracle.
Right, and throughout this time, he's with the Champions as well.
Right. When he moves to LA soon after he joins the Champions, we're not going to deal with that either because again, that's just it would be too much. But this orb is really going to become like his arch villain. Right?
Yeah, he really is.
Okay. Because and that Marvel Team Up 15, he gets disfigured, and now he's wants not only he wants revenge, he also again wants Karen Page for the ransom.
Right. Yeah, he definitely blames Johnny for his facial disfigurement.
Yeah. And he's also a motorcyclist, a very good one.
Yes.
And they have this there's a good splash page here of you see Ventura Highway and you see them riding on the chasing through the traffic.
Yeah.
Really kind of cool visuals here. I'll show it to you because I think it's kind of unique. My copy is not the best, but and this one here is Bob Brown, which is kind of a middle of the road artist, but better than Robbins in my opinion. So that's the splash page there. So you can see the kind of isometric view there.
Right.
But he is again dispatched, and he thinks maybe even killed because.
I think Robbins was a good artist. I just don't know that he was the right artist for this title.
Yeah. I mean, I think Ranger Sly said that as well. He's just not made for superheroes. But at comic strips, he was very good artist. Yeah. In fact, he says that right there. Yeah. 2, 3. Johnny Hazard. Oh, yep. Tearing the Pirates. Yep. Now we're going old school here. Okay, let me put this in. And here's another one of those one-shot stories.
Yeah. It was some parts of it were a good story. The whole basis for the conflict was kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
But let me sum this up really quick. So Johnny is always
you take this one.
Yeah, Johnny is always soul searching, right? And so he found himself in Mexico. And there's this guy who was shooting at dolphins right there on the coast and caused Johnny to wreck his bike when he was coming up near him. Nearly hit Johnny as well. Yeah, because his
daughter pulled the gun away. And
that's exactly right. Yep. And so he allowed Johnny to fix his bike, and then he figured out the backstory where this fella worked for the government, maybe the CIA, where he was convinced that dolphins were intelligent enough to train to attack certain ships with explosives on them, which there were experiments by both sides during the Cold War with dolphins. And they were out doing this, and his daughter and his wife weren't terribly happy about it. But ultimately, during one of these training exercises, his daughter fell overboard, and one of the dolphins was near her, which this guy mistook for a shark, and he shot it. But it was the dolphin he had just equipped with an explosive device, and it blew up the boat and killed his wife. So he blames dolphins for the death of his wife. And ultimately, that's what his daughter is trying to stop him from doing, shooting more dolphins. Well, later on, he goes out on his boat to do some more dolphin hunting, and that's when Johnny intervenes, and they both go overboard on the boat, and they really are attacked by a great white shark. And his hellfire works underwater because Ghost Rider saves both of them, and then dolphins come and take them to the shore, even after all the evil he had done to dolphin kind. And so then he wonders at the very end if the dolphins understand that he's sorry.
Yeah, and then you see them jumping out of the water in formation, sort of seeing. Yeah. So it was a cool, pretty predictable, but you know.
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. It was good to kind of get it away from what they've been, and that's what I like about a lot of these Spider-Woman, She-Hulk, Johnny Blaze, is they're just kind of like derelict wanderers oftentimes, where they don't have any money, they really don't have any direction, they just wander from one situation to another.
Yeah, they're like nomads, you know.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, so here we go again. Ghost Rider and Son of Satan, because what happened here? Okay. All right. Now, Bill mentioned that Katie Milner, right?
Yeah.
She was a stunt woman, but she wasn't who we thought she was. All right. But she got possessed. All right. She was injured in that thing with the orb, right? But not seriously injured. And she's in the hospital, and all of a sudden she goes full on Linda Blair, you know?
Yeah.
Things moving in the room and pushing people in the wind and the whole bit. And Johnny's like, you know, feels responsible for her. So he calls in
Damon Hellstrom. Yeah.
Damon Hellstrom, right? And we later find out that Katie Milner is actually
Roxanne Simpson.
Yeah. Got it.
But real quickly, so the only way to save her soul was that in that issue or the next issue was Ghost Rider had to go it alone and battle. I think he had to battle Satan in some way, some mental type of.
He goes through. He has to. She's like sealed up in this force field. So Damon Hellstrom can't get to her. Right. So
even at this point when she's not possessed anymore.
Right.
I think she's still sealed up where no one can get to her. Right.
And the only way for her to be released is for him to sort of go down there and tackle Satan and
alone without Damon Hellstrom.
Without Damien, right? So because and he leaves Damien because you never know what demons might come back, you know.
Right.
So he goes down there and he fights all the apparitions from all these different foes and superheroes that he's met.
The allies, right?
Yeah, like everybody. And again, Satan is trying to break him down so that he will just give up his soul, you know. And he's exhausted, you know. He's just mentally and physically exhausted. And in this one here, this is where like the culmination of it occurs. Oh, by the way, when he goes to LA, we also are introduced to two characters who at this point, maybe you didn't know who they were, but they are Richard and Wendy Penny.
Yeah.
You know, and they were producers or something in the studio.
Yeah, I think special effects and makeup or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. But of course, they are, you know, well-regarded creators of ElfQuest, for example. Probably that's the most famous creation. So that was cool to have them in there, you know.
Like a little Easter egg.
Little Easter. There are all kinds of little Easter eggs in here, actually. And also the friend comes up here as well. he's like crucified, I think.
Right.
And again, everything is just to sort of confuse Johnny and make him just break him down, you know.
Right.
And then here you get the real. This is actually not Satan here. It's some really highfalutin demon that Satan sends after him, and he's just crunching up, you know, Johnny, just absolutely just annihilating him. But eventually, though, it's revealed that Roxanne Simpson is actually is freed, is not possessed anymore, not Katie Milner. And he vanquishes that demon, and she's free. You know?
Yeah, well, I think, is this the one where the demon is only as powerful as Johnny thinks he is?
Correct. Exactly.
Yeah. And I think once he comes to that realization, he easily defeats him.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
But he was against the ropes. This is probably the closest Ghost Rider come to being defeated.
Yeah, he was down and out, and then it just occurred to him, hey, there was something that happened. He heard him somehow, and he was like, that's weird. And he was like, I wonder if it's only because I think he can't be hurt, or I think he's that powerful. Right. And once he figured that out, that was it. He was a goner. But Roxanne Simpson is now back in the game here, and she's still going to be a stunt woman. In LA, but before that, we get another plot line. Thank God, with a much better artist, John Byrne. And the story starts here in Daredevil 138, and this sort of resolves that whole kidnapping plot of ransom for Karen Page. Of course, Karen Page was a paramour of Matt Murdock.
Yep.
And Death's Head was her father. The original Death's Head was her father. And of course, Johnny Blaze comes in here because he wants to help out Karen. He feels he's actually looking for her because she was, you know, kidnapped by the Smasher, I think the guy's name is.
Right.
Yeah. And Daredevil's doing pretty well, but then Johnny Blaze comes in there, helps him out. But at the end, we find out that this is really not Death's Head. It is Death Stalker.
Yeah.
and this dude here, if he touches you, you're dead.
Yes.
You know. But so Daredevil can't get too close to him, but he actually grabs Johnny here and his Ghost Rider form, and nothing happens. And he's like, that's never happened before, you know.
Right.
And now I think here the Ghost Rider starts to become a little more powerful, and he can start forming his Hell Cycle again, and he becomes the Ghost Rider when danger's around. You know, before only at night. Now it's like when danger's around. Right?
Yep. And then ultimately he gains mastery over that, and he can change through willpower.
Yeah. And his Hellfire is what takes care of this guy. He burns him up. You know, or we think, you know, but he's gone, you know. But he turns back to Johnny Blaze, so they figure, okay, he's gone. Karen Page is rescued, but, you know, she gives Daredevil, you know, Matt Murdock a kiss, whatever. Bye. All right. Trying to go faster here, Bill. So
no, I understand.
Yeah. So there's much more we could talk about, but
I know.
We already we're almost at 7:45. We want to see if we can get out of here by 8:15 or so. Okay, so here. Now we start like the Enforcer story here, and essentially this guy wants to take over the gang,
all the crime.
Yeah. So he hires the Eel to steal this device, and Gladiator wants to take it too, and
there are a lot of moving pieces here, and then Johnny notices that, and so he goes after the Eel, I believe, and the Eel is murdered.
Yeah, Eel's murdered. Yeah. And then they think initially it was Johnny because he's standing over him.
Correct.
You know? Talk about
so the police are after him. Yeah, that's always an added element in it.
Yeah. But yeah, exactly. But now he starts like he uses a lot of scare tactics on his villains, like down going to be damned by my hellfire, that kind of thing. And it works on the Gladiator. He's like freaked out,
Yep.
But it doesn't work on everybody, unfortunately.
No, because I mean, even up until this point, most people think that, oh, that's that stunt cyclist with his fake, showy type flaming mask and stuff like that. Most people don't think that he's Superman.
Yeah, over and over. Oh, it's just parlor tricks, and it's a trick helmet,
Yep.
And it's pyrotechnics, and
that's right.
So a lot of people know Johnny Blaze and Ghost Rider are the same person, but they just don't believe he's really
right. And the fact that they know it, that's what does cause a lot of issues with the police.
Now, of course, because they know they even go to the studio to find them.
That's right.
Then here we got the Enforcer. Again, that's that guy back there. See, and actually, he thinks it's the head of Delancey Studios. Because all the evidence points to the stealing of the file of the Karen page and all that. But no, it's not. It's actually, spoilers, his son. Again, tropes,
Yeah.
Yeah,
because there's some investigations going on at the studio by, I think, the accountant, particularly into Coop Collier, who is like the director or producer.
Yeah,
but he stumbles into stuff about the owner as well.
Yeah, that's correct. And he's also got this guy, Water Wizard, working under the Enforcer, who I think this is like his first appearance, and he's like can manipulate water.
Right. Yeah. So super fast. I know we're pressed for time. So he was like a Vietnam veteran who was injured, and then on the ship where they're performing surgery, when they were performing surgery, the ship was struck by electricity. And somehow that gave him the power to manipulate water. And so here we're introduced to him where he's using that manipulation to rob a bank. And then ultimately, yes, he's hired by the Enforcer to get rid of Ghost Rider.
And the one trick that kind of off camera here is that Ghost Rider and the Enforcer are fighting underwater, and he loses his ring where he has that disintegrator ring. And then the next issue, he has it, and he's like, "Oh, the Water Wizard got it for me,"
Yeah. So there was a scientist who ultimately the Enforcer was going to kill, who gave him who packaged up this pretty big size that they went to go steal.
It's like the size of a suitcase when it started.
Disintegrating ray. And then he has this scientist miniaturize it for him into a ring. And he goes and just to show what it'll do, he miniaturizes a battleship, and that's where he and Ghost Rider meet and start fighting, and he loses the ring.
Yeah. So he's making. In fact, there's another mafia guy who questions him. He just disintegrates him.
Right.
Everybody else says, "You're the boss."
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah.
It's like a Roland Capone kind of moment.
Absolutely.
But eventually, he does find out that it's when he's unmasked, he finds out that it is in fact Delancey's son.
Yep.
So all right. This was kind of this is a one-shot villain, I think, kind of thing. What was his name? Mayhem or something.
Oh, right.
Yeah, Mayhem. I think this is one of those fill-in kind of deals here. I don't think anything really important happened here, unless you.
Right, it doesn't advance the story.
Yeah, it doesn't really advance the story. But this one kind of does, because this Dr. Druid, Anthony Druid, is kind of like a sorcerer and investigator of the supernatural, that kind of thing.
Right.
And he thinks that the Ghost Rider is a satanic tool. Well, he spawned from Satan, but Satan doesn't control him.
Right.
Well, he shows up at the studio and hypnotizes everybody until Johnny shows up, and then they go at it. I mean,
right.
That was a good fight scene in there.
It was, and Johnny had the upper hand until he changed him back to, Ghost Rider had the upper hand until he's changed back to Johnny, and then Druid easily defeated him, but then went up and read his mind and realized, oh, okay, he is spawned from Satan, but he's really a good guy. He's got a good soul, and so he went away.
Yeah, yeah, he
Left him.
him.
Yeah.
He defeated him, but he found out he was wrong in his assumption. So I think, again, kind of sometimes these things were kind of clever in a sense. That's the reaction I would have. I made a mistake.
Right.
And he's like, I'm not going to stay, because if I stay, it's just going to confuse things even worse.
Sure.
So I'm out of there. Here's kind of an aside issue too.
What's going on, Bad Dad?
Hey, we were just talking about you before the stream.
The Manticore.
This is kind of an aside issue again, out there in the desert where you love it, Bill.
Yeah.
And Hawkeye and Two Gun Kid are in a ranch, and he's now on his way back east. I think he's had it.
Well, he checked out of LA without telling anybody.
Yeah.
He just kind of split under the cover of darkness, right? And he encounters, I think, when he has bike trouble.
Yeah.
Hawkeye and Two Gun Kid are taking a sabbatical from the Avengers, and they're hanging out there. And then he gets along pretty well with, both of them, but particularly with Two Gun Kid, where he shows them how to ride a motorcycle, and Two Gun Kid shows them how to ride a horse. And so, they're hanging out, having a good old time. But this Manticore is this guy who ultimately lost his legs and makes a deal with the devil to put on these this armor and get these like cybernetic legs to form that suit. And if he can get Johnny's soul, then he can get his real legs back, I believe.
Well, I think he's actually trying to kidnap Hawkeye, the Avenger.
Oh, is he?
He's the weakest Avenger. He was supposed to get an Avenger.
Okay.
And he's trying to get Hawkeye because he figures he's the weakest guy, and he can't, because he's just not powerful enough. The three of them together just Hawkeye's the one who finishes them off, but they were softened up before that. I mean, again, kind of a one shot here, doesn't really move the story, except that there is a little part, I think, where Roxanne Simpson is looking for Johnny. I don't know if it was this issue or the one afterwards. And there's this guy, I forgot what his name is. Something Bill or something.
Yeah, Brahma Bill.
Yeah, exactly. And he's just one of these macho biker guys.
Yeah, he's good and bad, right?
Yeah.
He's good in that ultimate.
He wants Roxanne, so he's like, "Hey, Johnny, if no, go ahead, go on, don't worry about it."
Yeah. She doesn't want you anymore.
He wants to, Roxanne, but he ends up doing the right thing later on. Again, here we go. He's back. He's back.
Good night, Paulo.
Good night, buddy.
Good one. Hail Hydra.
Hydra. Great to see you here, buddy. We're finishing up here. So again, Hydra's back. At this point, I think Jim Shooter's writing it at this point, right? Or is it Mackenzie? Mackenzie, maybe.
Roger McKenzie. What issue is that one?
28. Yeah, Shooter might have finished already.
Yeah, this is Mackenzie.
Mackenzie. All right. So Shooter ended up right before, and now Mackenzie starts.
Yeah, and it's really Mackenzie on through till Starlin on that 35th issue.
And now again, everybody's a little different. Now he can actually turn into the Ghost Rider if he concentrates. I mean, he can't do it just like that. He has to have concentration.
Right.
And many times he's trying to, and he gets interrupted by villains or something.
Right.
But he can willing himself to become the Ghost Rider. And he thinks that he probably always could, but he just didn't know it,
Right.
And he's also a bit tougher now, and his demon side is a little bit more vicious.
Yeah, and a little bit less controllable.
Yeah.
More of a risk taker, all those things, right?
Yeah, I think this is where Mackenzie, I'm not sure if Shooter started or Mackenzie started that spirit of vengeance. He does call that himself that.
Correct. And that's when he really starts getting into, because previously he's using Hellfire to melt tires to the road encircle people, things like that. And that was the extent of what he did. But he shifted that to where he was seeking vengeance as the Rathos, or as the demon portion of him, and his hellfire would sear their soul.
Right. He did it to the water wizard. Yeah.
Correct. Yep. And often make them do whatever he commanded them to do.
Yeah. And essentially when he does that, it's like it's like freaks them out. I mean, it's like psychologically and spiritually just catatonic for a while.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. They're not able to continue any opposition to him at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. They just crumple, you know. So yeah, now we're starting to get into that more spirit of vengeance. Again, the soul searing hellfire. He's also like really tough. I mean, he's got shot up, like his tattered costume, and you see the bones, but he keeps going. You know?
Right.
So he's, again, every writer kind of does a little bit of a different enhancement or depowering, depending on who it is. And then we start. This is interesting here because Dormammu actually gets involved here, and this is really more of a Doctor Strange story than a Ghost Rider. Yeah. Dormammu wants to get Doctor Strange, so he creates this this fake Doctor Strange, and gets the demon part all riled up.
That's right, because his object is to piss off Ghost Rider to the extent that he'll go after the real Doctor Strange, which is in fact what he does.
It's in fact what he does, and they have a heck of a fight here.
Battle, yep.
And then eventually they switch bodies.
Right, where they switch bodies, and Johnny's fighting the Ghost Rider body physically, and Dormammu is battling Doctor Strange on the astral plane. To help save the soul of Johnny Blaze.
Johnny Blaze,
And I believe Doctor Strange's gal pal, what's her name again?
Clea,
that's right. She comes upon the scene, helps a little bit toward the end of it.
Yeah. Again, this reads much more like a Doctor Strange story than a Ghost Rider story. But cool, it's cool. Again, mystical art stuff.
Right.
Mackenzie, I think, kind of had a vision about what he wanted, and that's why he made him more powerful, because he wanted to take on Doctor Strange and the next guy here.
Right. Plus, it puts things into context, right? Instead of a character being in his own universe, when you see him interact with others from that universe, it makes it more cohesive, I think.
Yeah, agreed.
Now that and the next one are two of the greatest covers in this run. With the Bounty Hunter. Yeah, just incredible.
Yeah. And what's really cool is that the Bounty Hunter is like another Johnny Blaze. He made a deal with the devil.
That's right.
And didn't work out.
Yeah, he was like a crooked bounty hunter that would shoot his bounties in the back every chance he got. And then ultimately one of their relatives shot him in the back and killed him. And so he made a deal with the devil to, collect souls on his behalf. Yep. And one of them he wants is Johnny Blaze's.
He had to collect 50 souls, and guess who the 50th was?
Of course,
right here. So the devil knew there ain't going to be no cakewalk,
right?
And eventually, he actually gets tricked by the devil, and this other demon comes up and takes Johnny, and he's like, "Oh no, this is my bounty."
Right.
And these, I tell you, really, really cool stuff here. Look at that. Look at this with that noose right there.
Incredible cover art for both those issues.
Fabulous stuff here.
Because you're right. He had him dead to rights.
He had him. And again, you just cannot trust that devil, because he will double cross you at every turn.
That's right.
And eventually he figures out, well, I got to help him, because unless we do this together, we're not getting out of here.
Right.
Because all these other all his other victims come back from hell to get him.
Right.
But again, eventually doesn't work out well for
the devil.
For the devil, yeah. All right. Finish up real quick here, Bill.
All right. Yeah, so this one, I'll run through this one real quickly.
Thanks. Because
this is
about to crack.
This is a Ghost Rider happens upon this old prospector who has some amazing powers, and those powers have helped him find gold. And so he kind of, after they initially fought, because this prospector thought he might be one of these robot cycle riders, I think night riders or space riders, something like that they're called. Yeah, which are sent by this ship, which comes down, this spaceship, and both Ghost Rider and this prospector Woody, I think his name was, go into the ship, and there's a little bubble boy, and he imprisons both of them along with the little bubble boy's father. And so the backstory is that several hundred years earlier, this little boy was born with special powers, and they thought he was a witch, and the village people came to get him, and they killed his mother. But he turned them all into monsters, and reanimated his mother's corpse. And as he got smarter and smarter, grew mentally, his body became frailer and frailer. And so he encased himself in this bubble, created all this technology where he has his father enslaved and plays all these dirty tricks on him, trying to make him kill himself, and then jamming the gun at the end, making him spend time with the skeletal remains of his wife. And he turned this Woody into a tree. And ultimately, Woody and the Ghost Rider, who was in prison, Johnny Blaze, turns into the Ghost Rider, and they had to figure out a way to get past this kid who had all these powers. So what they did is, I think Woody did something to go down into the earth to strike oil, and then the Ghost Rider used his flame to blow up the ship, and everyone inside, save the Ghost Rider, who was able to ride on out, perished.
Right, exactly, and he justified it because Woody said he didn't want to live like that.
Right, and the father didn't want to.
And the father, said he's kept me alive for hundreds of years, and I'm essentially in torture.
Yep.
So yeah, very honestly, a really depressing story.
It was a good story though.
Yeah, good story, but very depressing.
Yeah.
And finally, guys, here we're at how long have we been at this? An hour and 31 minutes. Okay, we're not too far back.
I think that's the sole Jim Starlin issue right there.
This is and this is the transition issue to the Michael Fleischer run, which is excellent. I like this one a lot.
I did too. I mean, from the cover through the story, and it was really a fill-in. Because
it was a fill-in.
It doesn't do anything to advance the story. Yeah, he's just thinking back upon something that happened previously.
This was probably written for a couple years back, and they just didn't have an opportunity
to put it in.
I'm so glad they did this though, because it sort of shows that Johnny Blaze has a death wish, and he kind of acknowledges it. Being a stunt rider and being as wild and crazy and doing all this stuff that puts his life in danger constantly. So he meets up with death, and I think he's called the Death Rider at this point. He challenges him 3 races.
Right.
And essentially they're impossible because the Death Rider's bike is super duper charged. And at this point, I think he's got his regular bike, or I think he does.
I think for each of the races, there's a life in the balance, right?
There's a life in the balance, yeah. The first one, he doesn't make it, and the guy is touched by death, and he's skeletal.
He's dead, right.
The second one, he uses he uses his stunt riding abilities to trick death and go over this.
Right.
I think it's like a rock formation, and save this little bitty girl. And then in the last one,
he kicks him off the edge of the mountain or the cliff.
He was like, hold on a second. He said no rules.
Right.
So he kicks, and death falls down the side of a mountain.
Right.
So again, he had to do what he had to do. And that's where it ended. Really cool story. If you have a chance to pick up any issue, I'd pick this one up because it really sort of gives you an idea of the pressure and the talent that he has beyond just as a Ghost Rider.
Absolutely. I mean, he was the greatest stunt rider in the world, at least up until we'll get into that in part 2.
Yeah, we're gonna put that into part 2.
Yeah.
All right. So that's it, guys. So probably in a couple of weeks, remember to sub up Comic Mag Musings. His link is down there in the description. And in 2 weeks, we'll join up and finish this off. We'll show the rest of the covers, and we'll sort of wrap up our opinion about his career. And at the end, there's an ending to Ghost Rider in this series. Later on, it picked up, but to me, in this series, when it ended, was a really good ending.
It was.
We'll talk about it.
I think once it really gets rocking and rolling, especially around 39, 40 on this series, and it's incredible. The first part was good, but you can tell there are a lot of cooks in the kitchen, and everyone kind of seemingly either didn't want to work on it, and so didn't do a lot to advance the character, or really wanted to put his or her own spin on the character. I like the fact that, as opposed to what we talked about with Shang-Chi, and some of the characters in Master of Kung Fu, the love interests were a focal point of this series, and I do think that adds an extra element to it. It is definitely more soap opera-ish. It was kind of flippant the way some of the things happen, and I get it with comic books, but it's like one issue he's saying Roxanne is the only one for me, and the next issue he's saying, boy, I really like that Karen. I think we've got something special. And it was kind of confusing, and maybe that's the intent, just to say that, you know, affairs of the heart can be muddling and confusing, but it just didn't seem kind of natural the way he responded to each of those burgeoning love interests.
Yeah, I agree. Hey, Cream City, how you doing, Mike? Absolutely agree. It was interesting to me, if you look at the writers, how they each had their own little nuances, changes to the character as it went on. And the relationships as well. Roxanne sort of spans all of them.
Right.
But she was in some she was very central, others she was very tertiary.
Yep.
But it was, to me, it was just to see how, you know, oh, yeah, I can make a flame cycle. I can't make a flame cycle. I got to get a skull cycle. Well, I have to have a flame cycle and a skull cycle.
Right.
And so, and then he had this job that he was to do, and yet at night he was, you know, essentially he couldn't do it. So there was all this pressure about him.
Well, yeah, I mean, he had a job to do during the day, and then he wouldn't get any sleep at night.
Right. I mean, this man was made of steel, you know?
Right.
I mean, this man was made of, and by the way, Satan was on his tail constantly.
Yeah.
You know? So
and the cops.
Everybody, essentially, you know?
Correct.
Except he was at the studio. That was like, it was okay there.
Right. Yeah, I disliked the way they would switch back and forth between having a power and to the degree of which he had that power. I do like that they gradually introduce new powers. I really enjoyed that, instead of from issue 1 Jump Street saying, here's Ghost Rider, here are all his powers. I think it's more natural to say that obviously he wouldn't know under those circumstances everything he could do, and through experience, through time, he would gradually figure those things out. So I do like the way that unfolded. I don't know that that was intentional, but I do like the way it unfolded. Yeah,
I guarantee you it was not intentional, but because when writers took over, you can tell that they had a whole different kind of slant that they wanted to give the character.
Right, I'm saying it could have been intentional initially to give him a very limited set of powers. Yeah, that could be expanded on in the future.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, you make him super powerful, then, you know, you're really limiting yourself,
right?
As far as, you know, plots and so forth. But I found it fascinating as well, but maybe for different reasons. Because, you know, you really had to be in this series. You really had to pay attention. Yes. You know, if you missed a couple issues, you could have missed where he had the ability to turn into the Ghost Rider, and you're like, hey, what the heck happened here?
Right.
You know, absolutely. Why is he? Yeah. So I like that you had to really be engrossed into the character, and that's one thing that really kind of endeared him to me, in that he had all these problems constantly, and he was so unsure of himself so many times. He was not the smartest guy. Mm-hmm. Certainly, he was emotional sometimes. But, you know, other people, he had other people around him to help him out in different situations. And he just had a will about him that was just indomitable. And that is what Satan, I think, why he wanted him. Because he had that talent, that it's something that he coveted in people of strong wills. And Johnny Blaze was definitely one of those.
Right. And I think it's the natural struggle and juxtaposition of a generally good person fighting with this demonic demon, right? And it's Mephisto. It's not Satan. He was later retconned, right? Saying it was Mephisto who did it, yeah. And it's Zarathos is the spirit that the Ghost Rider is. And that's the one that he continues to fight, right? Ghost Rider doesn't have a whole lot of respect for Johnny Blaze. He kind of puts up with him and vice versa. And so you kind of have that dynamic going back and forth too, which is interesting.
And in part 2, you're going to hear a lot more about that dynamic for sure. Because Michael Fleischer has a very different take, in my opinion, of the Ghost Rider than what we've seen before. All right, Bill, let's get out of here.
All right.
I'm sure you have a beautiful wife to kiss and a beautiful kid that you need to correct.
Quite possibly, I'm sure. Yeah.
I'm just kidding. I love Mini Musings. He's a cool dude. Hey, Aaron, how you doing, buddy? We're about to get out of here. Catch it on the rewind. If you're a Ghost Rider nut like we are, you might enjoy this. Thank you for your input. And again, sub up Comic Mag Musings. Keep that notification bell for him. The man has dollar hauls for years.
That's true.
And you don't want to miss that. And when he goes to the desert, hopefully he won't meet the Ghost Rider there. But he always finds a slab or two somehow. And you don't want to. Oh, thank you, Mrs. Musings, for coming by. Thank you very much. and she wants a California roll. Okay, let's get out of here, Bill. Once the missus says she's hungry, we got to go.
That's funny.
Thank you, chat. You guys are the best. We will not cover the champions unless we want to do a part 3, Bill. And that's
I'm totally cool with doing another segment, later on on the champions. I'm game for that. Yeah.
Okay, we'll talk about that in a couple of weeks or offline, and we'll get back to you on that. I'm game too. I love the champion series, so I'm game. And that'll be a lot shorter. All right, everybody. God bless. Thank you, Bill. Take care. And I will see you all on Thursday on one of my special videos. And Bill is on Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays, and Saturdays.
Just Monday and Friday now.
Oh, just Monday and Friday. Oh, sorry. He's taking it easy. Yeah. All right, everybody. Take care. See you in a couple weeks. Thanks for coming by.